Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Football Inc., the home of all things football in a YouTube format. I hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things you love, those you love to do them with. I'm here with Jonny H3232 from Twitter fame. We're back after a bit of an absence. Apologies for the distraction. Other things have come up, but we're back to talk about many things. But today, primarily, is about the Carabao Cup semi-final, second leg, and of course the biggest game of this evening. It is only Wednesday. The biggest game of the week, of course, is tomorrow night. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Tomorrow. I love you. Tomorrow, Jonny. How you doing, mate? Big game tonight. Arsenal, Newcastle. What's your thoughts? Sorry, Newcastle, Arsenal. What's your thoughts, buddy? What's your thoughts?
It's a big couple of days, couple of nights in the football calendar. Semi-final. I know some will call it the worthless trophy, but it's a trophy, and believe me, Newcastle and Spurs are desperate for one. And I'm sure Arsenal are as well. Arteta be wanting it. Newcastle, it's been years. I think it's I'm not sure if it's 55 or 70 years since they last won a trophy. I'll have to check.
Long time.
It's a long time. So they'll be desperate. And it's on a knife edge. Both games are on a knife edge. And tonight's game, you would have thought, 2-0 up Newcastle, going to St. James's Park, the unbelievable atmosphere up there that Arsenal had it all to do. But after the Arsenal dismantling of Manchester City and Newcastle's 2 home defeats on the trot to Bournemouth and to Fulham, there's a little bit there's more confidence in the Arsenal camp. And I think there's a lot more nervousness in the Newcastle camp. What are you thinking, Sean?
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking first and foremost is smash the like button, people. Smash the subscribe if you haven't already. We've been doing this for about a month. We're 5 videos in. There was a 2-week absence because of shenanigans. They are afoot. But the most important thing for us is that you guys, if you enjoy the content, then hit the like button. If you don't already, then if you haven't already, then hit the subscribe button as well. Help us get to 1,000. Help us get to those metrics that we can continue to grow. And then we're going to get into the topics. Listen, Jonny has just touched on some obvious topics there and dropped in some stats. Newcastle are without a trophy win for a hell of a long time. As are, let's be honest, is one of the defense arguments that I always propone with regards to Daniel Levy is that if you're not part of the Big Five, then you haven't won anything in the vast majority of cases over the last 25 years. But in Newcastle's case, you have to go back far further. With Tottenham's case, it's long overdue. 2008, the last win, Jonny. Arsenal under Arteta, 1 FA Cup win in 4 or 5 years under a tenure under Arteta that has definitely seen an improvement in their team, a massive outlay, a massive expense in terms of squad rebuilding, but ultimately very little to show for it. So you can imagine that for him, it's very important that he gets this trophy. And let's be honest, even if you look at Liverpool, who are not on the receiving end of a trophy drought, but for Arne Slot to get the first trophy out of the way for his tenure at Liverpool inside of 5 months of his first season, a massive, massive endeavour and a brilliant way to calm his nerves as they go into what is looking increasingly likely like a potentially a cup double or maybe even a cup treble in his first season. So for all 4 teams, absolutely everything to play for, absolutely everything on the line, and both ties, as you so rightly suggested there, mate, is entirely delicately poised. Newcastle are 2 goals to the good against Arsenal, an Arsenal team that you would fear playing against at home, or if they were at home, away from home for the rest of the teams that play them. They're incredibly strong at home. Away from home, not so good. And Newcastle are a team, Jonny, that you look to and say, well, their insatiable appetite with their home fan base is incredible. It's a terrifying place to play most of the time. However, recently, Fulham have been the victor of the spoils at St. James's Park. They've had a little bit of a tailing off in their Premier League form,
especially the Bournemouth game.
And the Bournemouth game as well. Bournemouth, a team that are on the up and up, and then an incredible season for them and for Iriola, and obviously for Bill Foley, their owner, who's massive ambitions to turn that club into a juggernaut of English football. Obviously, tonight we're not going to talk about Tottenham versus Liverpool. We can save that one for tomorrow. So we've got some quotes here. We can go through from Mikel Arteta. We've got some quotes from Eddie Howe as well. But Eddie, do you want to give us the team news? Sorry, Johnny, do you want to give us the team news?
Well, look, Newcastle's midfield. Look, Joel Linton was in a protective knee boot after the Fulham game, so there is a lot of worry about him. But he hasn't announced anything yet as to him not playing. That midfield three of Tonali, Guimaraes, and Linton for me is such a strong midfield. And it really is going to be really important when they're coming up against Rice and Partey. So they really do need him. I do think if they are without Joel Linton, that's really going to play into Arsenal's hands come tonight. I hope it's not true, because I really want to see a competitive game. Don't want to see any excuses that they've got half their team missing and all the rest of it. But I think Harvey Barnes is out, as far as I know. Callum Wilson's back in training after a hamstring, but his game could come too soon. But Nick Pope, Fabian Schär, they're all back. I think, Barnes is out with a thigh strain, and Jamal Lascelles, he seems to always be out again with his knee. So I don't think there's any major surprises there. I think it really does depend on Joel Linton tonight. It's a huge one. I mean, Newcastle have had a couple have gone out. Almiron went to America, Atlanta United, and Lloyd Kelly. I'm probably thinking, I wish I hadn't moved there to Newcastle.
Interesting one with him, isn't it? Interesting one. A player that Tottenham fans will be very familiar with. We were looking at him as well, but he chose Newcastle over Tottenham, and it hasn't worked out. And now he's off. Where did he go to Serie A? Didn't he? He went to was it Juve? He went to
Juventus. He's joined Juventus on loan. So every
it's very interesting as well, because that's a team that doesn't traditionally play a high line, that has a back three formation. I guess similar to the old school version of him when he was at Bournemouth under previous managers, when they were kind of hanging on in most scenarios.
Yeah. And,
I was someone that was suggesting that you move him into a team that has a high line where he can sort of spread his wings a little bit, show his pace, show his talents. Imagine Mickey van der Ven playing in a low block. You're not going to see the best of him. No. Not that Tottenham are going to see the best of him with his current injury issues, but he goes to Newcastle and it hasn't really worked out, and he's now moving to a new country, new league, and ultimately he's going to go back into the system that doesn't really demonstrate his best talents, his pace and everything else. It's an interesting move, and I hope it works out for the guy. But yeah, obviously he's off the radar for this evening's game. As far as Arsenal, Johnny, do you have the team news there?
Well, no, I just just the usual, really. No Gabriel Jesus and Tomiyasu, Ben White, the usual, and obviously Saka. Neto's cup tied. Other than that, I think it's a strong Arsenal team. I never expected, I really was quite surprised at Arsenal in the home leg. I really thought that Arsenal were going to wipe Newcastle, and they would have to try and get it back. But the two goals from Isak and Anthony Gordon really set them back. And I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think any team in the Carabao Cup or the League Cup has ever come back from a 2-0 deficit at home.
No, I've got that statistic.
Since Arsenal beat Tottenham in 86, 87.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on that one, mate. I think I've got some quotes here. But yeah, I think you're right in saying that. Yeah, that it's never been done. I think only 3 teams in the history of the semi-finals of the Cup have overturned a first leg deficit, which is quite a palpable statistic, and it's one that's probably likely to be beaten this week. If not by Arsenal and Newcastle, then you look towards Tottenham and Liverpool, which we'll obviously talk about in a secondary video. That it looks more palpably possible than otherwise. But yeah, I think it's only 3 teams in the history of the Carabao Cup or the Carling Cup or the however you want to think of it, the League Cup, only 3 teams in the history of the semi-finals have ever overturned a first leg deficit. Quite incredible as a stat. I do have some commentary here to kind of run you through with regards the transfer windows of both teams. We're on Newcastle for the moment, and you've got Eddie Howe, who's only been able to spend £45 million on incoming since the start of this season, with one of those, Lloyd Kelly, already leaving the club for financial reasons to join Juventus. Kelly's £20 million sale, which will go through in the summer after an initial loan move to the Serie A giants, means the club have recouped around £100 million of sales across the season, but have been left with little depth. And he was asked, was he upset? Was he frustrated? And he said, no, he wasn't. That this was a long time in the making, Johnny. The window ended how we expected it to. Different emotions for me. Overall, there's an element of frustration that we haven't taken the squad forward in a positive way. That's everyone's aim and ambition, but not yesterday. On the day, it's more of an overall feeling. We're keen to take the team forward and progress, but we haven't been able to do that in this window. So look, for those Tottenham fans that are watching, and I'm guessing because of Johnny and I's, where our loyalties lie, that most of you that will be watching this are probably Tottenham fans. It's not just Tottenham fans that should feel a little bit frustrated. Newcastle United didn't get to do very much in that particular window. Johnny, just quickly before I move to Arsenal's quotes from Mikel Arteta, any kind of thoughts quickly on Newcastle's transfer window and just generally the kind of makeup of the market with regards PSR? Yeah. Maybe we think it doesn't have very many bite marks across the top league, the top teams at the moment. But in terms of, bite marks don't necessarily need to be visible for there to be an impact. Fear of the bite mark can also play a part. And obviously Newcastle, with the deepest pockets in football in terms of, the ownership's net worth, they're still very, very, very much timid in regards to pushing that line. Not such a thing that is commonly found for some of the other teams like Chelsea and Manchester City.
No, I mean, look, I think for me, I think he's towing the line here. I think it's not a bad squad. I think an attacking point, with Barnes, Gordon, they got and Isak, and with the midfield as strong as it is. I also like Hall. I think he's a fantastic defender, or back, should I say. I think maybe of any place they probably need on the centre back is probably the position that I would say if they were missing anything, that would be the position for me that they need. But I think it's towing the line. I really do. I'm a big fan of Jacob Murphy. I mean, I know the others get the big headlines. But for me, Jacob Murphy lost his way a bit, and I think he's been fantastic this season for them. I think they've got a good squad. I don't think there's any real panic. As I said, Dan Burn, I'm hit and miss. I like Livramento and I like Hall. I think there's their 2 centre backs. Fabian Schär's done his bit, but. No, I think he's happy.
Ben Botman as well. I mean, in certain scenarios, certain games against Tottenham, we saw, not to get off the topic here, but Tottenham trying to apply a different type of trade in that particular game, smashing the ball long for the first time in months under the tenure of Ange Postecoglou, and poor old Dominic Solanke having to fend for himself in the long ball battle against. What is the tallest back four in football? I would imagine it is. I'm not sure of the statistics, but Sven Botman and Dan Burn out there, 6'5", 6'6", whatever they are. It's difficult, right? And so against certain types of opposition,
mobile. Martinelli.
Less mobile. But if you're battling an aerial threat, then Eddie Howe has put together a squad there that, at least in the defensive capabilities, is absolutely insanely outperforming with regards their ability to defend long throw-ins, corner kicks, and obviously the long ball from the top. And so I'm not sure if Arsenal were going to utilize that skill set tonight. That's not really something that Arsenal or Arteta have to do. They have enough technicality at the front end, but it's certainly something that they can kind of chalk off the list of threats with regards the set pieces, I guess.
Well, they'll be looking at Arsenal. Arteta will be definitely looking at that Bournemouth game and how to exploit their weaknesses. Like I said, Dan Burn great in the air. I just feel, I like Fabian Schär, but I think that's their weakness personally, through the middle, personally, with mobility. And I think Arsenal have got a lot of mobility in that midfield and in attack. Whether it be Trossard, Nwani, they've got a lot of pace and a lot of creativity. Odegaard's the pressing in that Man City game was
insane,
fantastic. City tried to survive the press for the first 20 minutes and did a good job to only be 1-0 down. And then Arsenal sort of backed off them and let them have the ball. But as soon as they came in and they scored that goal, City, Arsenal just went up another level and just pressed them to death.
There's waves. There's waves to this Arsenal's waves, and they can when they turn it on a gear. Most teams struggle, but that's Arsenal at home, Arsenal away, and Newcastle at home leaves an incredible dynamic. Let's just pivot quickly. Sorry, Johnny. Sorry, mate.
I was just going to say the crowd. You often see Odegaard, going like this with the crowd, trying to get the crowd up because they feed off of the crowd. And I'm not saying that the crowd against Fulham and Bournemouth for Newcastle fans wasn't up, but there's something special about a semi-final night at St James's Park or any major stadium, and a night game on such a significant game that so much is at stake. So I think that, the Newcastle players will be given that extra lift tonight, and it's up to Arsenal. Can Arsenal step up into that that atmosphere and overcome the lead? That first goal is massive because if Arsenal score that early goal because they'll come out fast, then there'll be nerves. But whereas if Newcastle get that early goal,
if they score the first goal, the game, the tie's dead, in my opinion.
It could be dead. I think if they can't game manage a 3-0, then
game management is not something that Newcastle fans don't have to worry about. Game management when it comes to Eddie Howe, they're the masters of the dark arts with regards to rolling around on the floor. There's no disrespect to Newcastle. A lot of Newcastle fans. Well, so at Arsenal, exactly, but Arsenal don't have the benefit of the 2-0 first leg advantage, right? So a lot of Newcastle fans often don't like it when we point these things out. They think that it's some sort of criticism. It's not a criticism. It's actually a pat on the back, to your team, and you are playing within the rules and you're doing what you have to do to get the job done. And I think Eddie Howe is a master, and he has delivered and disseminated that skill set that he has in his mind into the players of the Newcastle squad. That when the time is right, if necessary, you roll around for a few minutes here, a few minutes there. You chew up that clock, because even if you get the minutes back during injury time, there's a different level of pressure on the other side, the other team, because they see that the clock is running down. And whether or not the minutes are always accounted for, I think that there's a benefit to chewing up that clock during normal time that most managers don't necessarily involve themselves with. But I think Eddie Howe is an absolute sensational manager in that regard. Johnny, I wanted to kind of pivot to in the last sort of 10 minutes here, or last 7 or 8 minutes here, at the Arsenal side of the coin. I've got some quotes for you from Mikel Arteta's pre-match press conference. He said, when you compare the emotional state of the team straight after the defeat, he's referring to the Newcastle game. He said, and the manner that it happened and how we are today is very different, because you come across very strong performances, some great wins, especially in the last home game against Manchester City. After that game, we'll have a break. So it's then that we go full gas, full beans is what he's saying. The next step is a final in Wembley. So we know how big that is. And you can feel it straight away. The boost the game against City gave us, the manner in which that game, the fact that is a game in the competition where we are closest to a final. So we are going to give it a real go. He said, we have to perform at home. We have to be ourselves. That is the challenge for us. Focusing too much on the scoreline from the first leg and the dynamic. Sorry, he's saying we have to perform away from home. Sorry, I misread that. we and the dynamics there is no good. We just have to attack the game. My message is we are at the halfway point in the tie. The game is still very much alive. We have to approach the game in a really positive and aggressive way. We're in a good position, and we need to take the most or make the most of every opportunity. He goes on, but in terms of it's basically kind of a culmination of the same sort of.
That's a terrible Spanish accent you put on there, Jordan.
Yeah, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, guys. It's a disgrace, guys. Listen, I'd love to be able to do my Lego head impression, but I'm not really sure I can justify the Lego head like moniker here. So
first of all, you have to do your top up tight, so you're that tight up.
Well, 100%. He's saying all the things that you'd expect him to say. He's also saying
the final. He needs the final, Sean. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Newcastle need it, Spurs need it, but to think that Arsenal don't need it because they're up in second position, the fans want to try.
Arsenal need it. Arsenal fans need something to hang their hat on with regards to Arteta. Look, it's been 5 years, 4.5 years. He won the FA Cup in his first season.
Better add the Charity Shield, because otherwise they'll get upset with us.
No, we're not going to include the Charity Shield. We're definitely not going to do that on this channel. Because Tottenham never were a part of it. If Tottenham were a part of it, well, then we would absolutely include it. But that's just the way we work, opportunistic. But in terms of Arteta, 4.5 years, he got his first trophy within a few months, right, of taking over the helm, and nothing since. A lot of money's been spent, and look, there's a lot of progress. As much as I didn't realize this, I spoke to my dad the other day, and he reminded me that of all of the teams that there's the stat that goes around regarding. Since the Premier League's inception, there's only, I think, 4 or 5 teams that have ever not gone down since the Premier League in 1991, and that's Everton, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, and United. Right? Sorry, yeah, I think that's right.
We've been down. Yeah.
But in terms of, I believe this is true. I haven't. So you can quote or fact check me here. But since the first division, so since almost since the inception of football, there's only 3 teams that have never gone down, ever. Manchester United they got relegated in the under Dennis Law's tenure when he played for City at the tail end of his career, and he got relegated. He actually didn't celebrate the goal when he was playing for City that relegated United. I think that's correct. Tottenham have, obviously, but there's only 3 teams. I'm not sure who the third is, but 2 of them are Arsenal and Everton. So when they got to the top, they never dropped the ball. Right? They never got kicked out of the first division, and there's a lot of pressure on Arteta to take this team forward. They are a team that has. They've been at the very top for the longest time, and he hasn't, despite all of the money against. Look, it's an argument that I always make to kind of defend Daniel Levy a little bit. Is that you look at the reality of the situation in the last, I think it's 15 years, 75% of all of the trophies have been won by 2 teams, but over the last 25 years, 92% of all trophies have been won by 5 teams, Johnny, and
Arsenal should be part of it. They should be.
Well, they are part of that. They are part of that 5-team demographic, but not in recent years, right? Not in recent years. Most of that success has happened under the Arteta reign. Under the Arsene Wenger reign. Arteta is the recipient of trying to carry on the can and take the baton forward, and he has struggled. Do you consider this trophy to be as important to Arsenal as it is to Newcastle?
Well, I think. Spurs and
Arsenal fans. How about that? Arsenal fans.
And I think, yes, I do. I think it's just as important. Whatever they may say, it's a minor trophy. Let me tell you, if Arsenal lose tonight and Spurs miraculously beat Liverpool, it will be a minor trophy. If they beat Newcastle,
bigger fish to fry.
And and if we beat Newcastle, if they beat Newcastle, but we lose to Liverpool, it will be a trophy and we haven't won in years, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, both Spurs and Arsenal fans, the one thing that they both fear is getting to a final and one of them losing. Because It's never happened. It's never happened. Imagine the losing team. It's banter rights. It's banter rights for a long, long time. Yeah?
100%. And people can undermine this trophy, but in terms of when you look at the demographic of the teams that are in the final 4, you look at what it would mean to even Arne Slot, right?
Of course.
And it's his first trophy within the first available trophy, and he wins it. Well done. And you're likely to go on and win a cup double, a league and trophy, and a cup double in your first season. Unbelievable from that man.
Eddie Howe would be a hero. Eddie Howe would be a hero.
Howe would have done something that Newcastle haven't done in decades.
Yeah.
Daniel Levy, how much pressure is relieved from him in some parts of the fan base?
Well, and listen, look, let's be serious. As Ange says, I always win. Let me correct you. I always win in my second season. And then you have Arteta, who's on the sideline flapping his arms, trying to will them to the final. Listen, look, let's make no bones about it. I think with that centre-back defensive partnership, which is the best in the league of Gabriel and Saliba. They really should be. I mean, on paper, that's a very, very exciting team.
It's going to be fascinating, though, mate, because, Arsenal have to turn around a 2-goal deficit. And let's be entirely frank, the entire season, they have scored the majority of their goals. I'm not sure if I'm right about the majority specifically. Yeah. They've scored the majority at home, and they've scored the majority from set pieces. And against Newcastle's tall defense, it's not a rock and a hard place. It's not David versus Goliath. It's Goliath versus Goliath in literal terms. So you're gonna. I'm not sure of Newcastle's defensive record off the top of my head, in terms of set pieces, but you have to imagine that Saliba and Gabriel, if they're looking and licking their lips against, say, a team like Tottenham, who struggle defensively from set pieces, against Newcastle, I would imagine it's not quite the same. I'm not sure the stats, but so if Arsenal's biggest firepower comes from set pieces, and they're up against a team with 6'7" Dan Burn at left back and 6'5" Sven Botman, they're going to have to win the game by a 3 or 2 goal margin, a 3-goal margin with the ball at the floor for the primary.
I don't think
it's going to be fascinating, isn't it not?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to do that, Arsenal. I think Arsenal's ground game through the middle is where they're going to hurt Newcastle personally. Havertz, yes, he missed a sitter the other day. How he missed that shot, I'll never know. But, him playing as a false 9 with the 2 wingers, Martinelli, Trossard, the strength of their midfield, Timber. I just think that this game is going to hinge on this first goal. I might be wrong, but I think it's huge. I think it's absolutely huge. I know it's a bit of a cliche, first goal could decide it, but it really could. This game
in this particular circumstance, though, if Newcastle were to take if Newcastle were to get the first goal, in the first half, or even if it happens if it's 0-0 at half time and Newcastle get the first goal in the second half, then then Arsenal have to score 3 just to take it to penalties. I think it is. So it's a large mountain to overcome.
Yeah, I think what they'll do is how they played us the other day, the last time they played us, which was just sit back and try and counters. You can have the ball all you like. I think, Newcastle's counter attack is fantastic. Tonali, Guimaraes, Linton all progress the ball quickly. Linton and Hall down the flanks, and with Itzhak and Gordon, there's plenty of pace there. And I think both. That's how they'll play it. I don't think they need to take the risk. It's Arsenal that got to take the risk, so they'll be compact. And I think Newcastle look to try and catch them on the counter. That's what I would do if I was Eddie Howe. I'm not Eddie Howe.
I agree. No, I think it would be absolute madness to approach the game in any other way. It's all about Arsenal, how dedicated they are, how, listen, we don't even know what they're going to do. I could have called out a bunch of quotes here about Arsenal's frustrations with regards their centre-forward search. They were looking for Matisse Tell. He ended up coming to Tottenham. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. Johnny, let's finish here. We've been going for half an hour, mate. What's your score prediction for tonight's game? Arsenal 0, Newcastle 2 is how the first leg finished. How do you see the overall tie ending up? And who's going to make it to the final?
I'm going to go for 3-2 to Arsenal, but Newcastle going through.
I love that. And you know what? If that's what they're going to be, that's what's going to be sort of served up to us on a dinner tray this evening, then it'll be well worth the 2 hours of your time, guys. I'm going to also go with the Newcastle getting through. I'm going to say 3. It's going to finish 3-1 to Newcastle. I'm going to say it's going to finish 1-1 on the night. And I agree with Jonny on his sentiment with regards Newcastle pipping one off on the counter. Arsenal have got it all to do. I think it's a bridge too far at Newcastle, despite their recent hiccups at with regards Bournemouth and Fulham. But a wonderful 90 minutes in store for us, Jonny. And we will be back for our post-match reaction straight after the game. You'll see this within half an hour of the game finishing. Jonny and I, hopefully, all being well with regards technology. If you know me, you know the problems I'm going through. Then we'll be hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow for the pre-match for Tottenham-Liverpool as well, or Liverpool-Tottenham for the second game of the semi-final. A fascinating week of football, Jonny. Lovely to see you, mate. Anywhere else we can find you apart from a Football Link and Spurs talk show?
No, just I'm off to Dubai after the Liverpool game, and so a long needed break after the transfer window and endless streaming. I've got
so we're going to have to. You guys will only be able to see it because of Jonny's backdrop. You're only ever going to be able to tell the difference of where he is by the
backdrops. I'm going to put different backdrops now.
You know what? You might just see like him doing the same backdrop, but he happens to be in 43-degree weather. You only be able to tell the difference because he's got a bead of sweat running down his forehead as he's talking to me about Tottenham's next game. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys, if you enjoy the channel. We're here to talk about all things, not just Tottenham, but obviously Tottenham are part of that conversation as well. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, what did we say? It's goodbye from him.
And goodbye from me. Good night.
Perfect.